Of course, I remember those events well. I was sitting on the couch the night before, watching TV. Mom came up, already dressed, and asked, "Can I go to the cinema?" It surprised me. She had never asked before. I said yes, of course. Then I went to bed, and when I woke up at a little after 7, I went to my mother's room. I opened the door, and the bed is made. The room is cool and bright. At that moment, the home phone rang. It was Sasha, my mother's friend, who called. He asked, "Hi, is Mom at home?" "No," I say. I wasn't worried, to be honest. I'm asking, "Do you have it?" He says not either. With that, we said goodbye. I went to school. On Tuesday, the 8th of September, 2009 year, 28-year-old Irina Safonova, who worked as a psychologist at that time. After work, I went with my 27-year-old young man Alexander to an evening session at the cinema for the premiere of the film Inglourious Basterds. Alexander picked Irina up from work, and together they went to the Pobeda cinema in his car. The session started at 20 hours and 50 minutes. After the end of the session at 23:30, Andriy immediately took Irina home to the address: Demikov Street, House 1. At 23:55, the young people had already driven up to the entrance of the girl's house, in which she rented an apartment. Irina lived in this apartment with her 10-year-old son Andriy and younger brother Ilya. Ilya was a university student at that time. At 0 hours 2 minutes, on the 9th of September, Irina got out of Alexander's car and went into the entrance with the keys in her hands. At 0:15, Alexander sent her a message on the phone. The message was delivered, but there was no response. Alexander did not worry, because this has happened before. Irina came home, put the phone away, and immediately went to bed. Later it will become known that Irina's neighbor was returning home at midnight. Entering the elevator, she stepped on a newspaper lying on the floor. There was an object under the newspaper. Brushing away the newspaper, the woman discovered that they were keys. She took them home, and the next morning, she hung an announcement about the find in the entrance. Meanwhile, at night, without waiting for Irina, Andriy and Ilya went to bed. I kind of got used to the fact that she could come very late. So we went to bed. And he left the light on in the hallway so that she could calmly go home, Ilya said later. At 7:20 the next morning, Alexander called Irina's mobile phone to wish her good morning. However, the girl's number was unavailable. Then at 7:25 Alexander called his home phone. Son Andriy picked up the phone and replied that his mother had not yet returned from the cinema. It was from this moment that Irina Safonova is considered missing. According to the official version, Irina took the newspaper out of the mailbox, went into the elevator, and disappeared into thin air. A neighbor found a newspaper lying on the elevator floor and some keys an hour later. The woman took the keys with her, and the next morning, she hung an ad in the entrance. Keys found. These were the keys to Safonova's apartment, which no one else had ever seen. Irina looked to be about 25 years old. Height 156 centimeters, of slim build. The face is round, the eyes are brown. Hair below the shoulders, curly, dyed in a light tone. Shoe size 35. At the time of the disappearance, Irina was dressed in a white hooded windbreaker with black speckles, a brown turtleneck with short sleeves, blue jeans, black suede sneakers. After a phone conversation with Alexander, Andriy went to school. After returning from school and letting the pet rabbit run around the apartment, the boy went to visit his aunt, who lived in the next entrance. Homework, playing on the computer. So the rest of the day passed, and my aunt left me to spend the night at her place. I don't even remember under what pretext. By that time, Alexander, his aunt, and Irina's parents already knew about the girl's disappearance. They have already reported to the police and started preparing leaflets with Irina's photo. Before I went to sleep, I asked if Mom was back. No. Where is she? My aunt answered. I do not know, maybe she is on a business trip. But I realized that it was a lie, but I didn't attach any importance to it. In the morning, I went to school again. And approximately according to the same scenario, 2 or 3 days passed. They didn't tell me anything. And then we had a physical education lesson on the street, and there was a running ring of poles. And there was something hanging on one of the pillars, some kind of leaflet. I went over to read it. There was a picture of Mom. Seconds. I had a pre-fainting condition. And then I got a picture in my head, and I understood everything. And why am I spending the night at my aunt's? And why have my classmates been coming up to me for the last few days, saying something sympathetically? And why Mom has been gone for so many days? By the evening of the 10th of September, 2009 year, after an article in a local newspaper, the topic splashed out on a huge number of forums and streets. Photos of the missing Irina Safonova flooded the city. In fact, it was the first virus on the Novosibirsk internet. The hype was also fueled by the complete absence of any plausible version of what happened. Leaflets, from which 28-year-old Siberian Irina Safonova looked at people, are literally everywhere. On every tree, on every fence, at bus stops, in entrances. Ira had been searched for more than a week, and every day more and more Siberians joined the search. And for the next 3 months, hundreds of volunteers were engaged in searching for the girl all over Novosibirsk. For all Novosibirsk media, this topic remained #1 all autumn. But in vain. The first and perhaps the main suspect was Alexander Skurikin, Irina's young man. After all, he was the last one to see the girl. His car was thoroughly inspected, and he himself was interrogated by the police for a long time. And, apparently, he went through a lot. Being in the status of a suspect, Alexander reported the following. Allegedly, they have been in a relationship with Irina for 7 years. Although their earliest joint photo was dated 2007 year, that is, 2 years before the disappearance of the girl. On Irina's pages in social networks, he was not among friends. In Odnoklassniki, Irina posted joint photos only with her husband and son. Alexander completely denied quarrels and conflicts with Irina. He claimed that she was the happiest girl on earth. He took an active part in the search for Irina. On the 19th of September, 2009 year, Alexander passed a polygraph test that showed that he was telling the truth. There were games of bad and good cop, there was a detector and 5-hour conversations. There were moments when I thought I was going to go crazy from the pressure on me. Alexander himself recalled that period of the interview, a year after those events. Now the man still lives in Novosibirsk, married, raising a small child, and maintains a relationship with the mother of the missing girl, Irina Koshkarova. He was embarrassed that he had a family, a child. After all, at the time of Ira's disappearance, they were friends. He loved her. But life goes on. Once I asked him, "What did the police do to you?" He said, "It's better for you not to know." From a mutual friend who communicated with investigators at work, I know that after a thorough check, the police rejected the version that Sasha was involved, says Irina Koshkarova. Although the online attitude towards Alexander is not so positive, many people suspect him. According to rumors, he is a friend of the administrators of the Akademgorodok Forum. And if, when discussing Irina's case, someone spoke out against Alexander, these users were immediately banned. It also became known that in one of the social networks a couple of months after Irina's disappearance, Alexander posted a photo where he and the company depicted a scene with knives. It's like cutting a doll. But after comments with questions about the relevance of the photo, Alexander immediately deleted it. Ilya, Irina's brother, spoke of Alexander as a very good person. Since 2000 of the 14th year, Alexander stopped appearing at the Academy Org Forum, the main forum of Akademradka, where the case of Irina Safonova was actively discussed. He also deleted his contact page. According to the memoirs of the head of the investigative department of the Criminal Investigation Department of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Russian Federation in the Novosibirsk district, Evgeny Chuiko, the police then worked out all possible versions of what happened. Where was who? Who benefits, who does not benefit? Of course, at first, they worked out versions about the involvement of persons from her entourage in the disappearance. The version that she could have gone somewhere. The version that someone from the entrance is involved, from outsiders. Or that she became ill with health, fainted in the elevator, and someone also came in. I saw it and took the girl to the hospital. They called morgues and hospitals. A special employee was also assigned to read numerous forums where versions of the disappearance were discussed very closely. But the police did not find anything useful there. One of the suspects was Irina's husband, named Vladimir. According to the girl's mother, in September of the 2009 year, her daughter found herself in a love triangle. Technically, she was married. But in fact, Vladimir's husband had been living in Moscow for several years and, as it turned out later, had been with a new woman for quite some time. Irina in Novosibirsk, in turn, also met with a man, his old school friend Alexander. The intentions of the former classmate were the most serious and, according to Mom, in the very near future. The growing tension in her daughter's personal relationships had to be resolved in one of two ways. Or Irina finally breaks up with her husband and marries Alexander, or breaks up with Alexander and restores the marriage with her husband. But everything was resolved unexpectedly. Irina is missing. However, as in the case of Alexander, a thorough check of the version of her own husband's involvement in Irina's disappearance was not confirmed. Now Vladimir Safonov still lives in Moscow. He never officially divorced Irina. And he lives with the same woman in a civil marriage. He brings up 2 children with her. His son Andrei, who is common with Irina, has also been living with his father in Moscow for the last few years. But after graduating from school, the young man decided to return to Novosibirsk to his grandmother and continue your studies here. Dad and I never discussed Mom's disappearance. Once only when I was sitting on the internet and reading articles about it. And I've read everything on this topic. He came up, stood behind me and said that there was a lot of nonsense being written there. This, by the way, is true, says Andrei Safonov. The young man intends to finish his college studies in Novosibirsk and go back to Moscow, where he wants to work as a coach in Aikido, which the young man has been actively engaged in recent years. In total, to date, almost 600 people are missing in the Novosibirsk region. Among them is Irina Safonova. According to the head of the investigative department, Evgeny Chuiko, the cases are not divided according to the statute of limitations. Safonova's case is also not closed, and the girl is wanted. Moreover, a criminal case has been initiated against him under the article murder. Of course, I will not claim that autumn of 2009 year we did everything without mistakes. For sure, we didn't finalize it somewhere. We could have missed something, followed the wrong track. Unfortunately, the girl was not found. And this case is really unusual. It was as if she had dissolved. But it cannot be said that the case is absolutely unique. Just like that, without traces, without leads, people disappear regularly. Although now it's a little easier for us than in the 2009 year. New technical means have appeared. There are a lot more video cameras around the city. It became possible to do genomic examination. But even now people are disappearing, so that even with all the most modern technical means at hand today, we cannot find them. Will it be possible to find Irina Safonova alive and unharmed? Nothing can be excluded, but, as experience shows, the probability of this is extremely low, says Yevgeny Chuiko, a private detective, A retired Interior Ministry officer, Sergei Nikolaev, worked in law enforcement 7 years ago, and was also engaged in the search for Irina Safonova. I remember the excitement very well. I've been involved in murders for many years, but even for me, the disappearance of that girl was like a miracle. Then we reached a dead end with this murder. And then I decided to try to use psychics. But, alas, it didn't help. What they show in the movies is nonsense. Although the psychic technique itself makes sense, it can give a small groundwork from which to build. Because of the psychics, I then got a lot of problems in the service, he recalls. The September search for Irina Safonova 12 years ago is also remembered by the head of the search team Lisa Alert in Novosibirsk, Nikolai Shishkin. There were no organized volunteer groups at that time, but I remember these events, of course. I'm from Koltsovo myself, and the neighborhood where she disappeared is almost my native place. The first search teams of Dobrospa's Lisa Alert appeared in Novosibirsk only a few years later. And now, according to Nikolai Shishkin, it is much easier to organize volunteers to search. Akademgorodok is quite a quiet place. If people get lost there, it is rather an exception to the rule. For all the time, you can recall only 2 out of the ordinary cases. In the 2004 year, 13-year-old Artem Sisoev disappeared and has not yet been found. He left the school and disappeared. And in May, Yulia Kiriva disappeared, left the opera nightclub, and was never seen again. In September, Yulia's body was found in the forest. In September, Akademgorodok was shocked by the news of 3 rapes in 1 week. And immediately after these cases, Irina Safonova disappeared without a trace. A year after Irina's disappearance, her namesake Lyudmila Safonova was put on the wanted list. It is noteworthy that Lyudmila Safonova lived near the house of the missing Irina. The girl's parents turned to the police. According to them, 19-year-old Luda left the Lenin Square metro station on the morning of November 17th and disappeared. At least, no one has heard from her since. Friends are also at a loss to guess where the student may be. It is known that before that, the Siberian woman had registered on a dating site and corresponded with a large number of men. Perhaps this fact is somehow connected with the disappearance of the girl. Neither the policeman nor Elena Safonova have any doubts that the girl is alive. The next day after the disappearance of the metro surveillance camera, Luda was filmed leaving the Gagarinskaya metro station. There were also people who remembered that they had seen a student in the area of this metro station. This girl filled out a questionnaire on November 18th and came to our company for an interview on the 19th. The company is located in the city center, near the Gagarinskaya metro station, wrote a certain Tamara. However, Lyudmila Safonova has not been found yet. The case of Irina Safonova for Novosibirsk is something more than the ordinary disappearance of a beautiful girl. There is not only mystery in it, but also fear. After all, it's very scary when you don't understand what happened. But at the same time, you understand that this can happen to you or to someone close to you. Novosibirsk has changed in 12 years, but this fear has remained. And it is he who drives hundreds of volunteers to search for the missing, so that such stories as with Irina Safonova will not be repeated anymore, or repeated as rarely as possible. According to Irina's son Andriy, it is not customary in his family to discuss that tragedy. And the reason why he decided to talk about it with a journalist for the first time was, among other things, the understanding that his words could be heard by a person involved in that mysterious abduction. I would like this person, who knows what happened that night, to somehow come out to me. If he gets up the courage, I am ready to talk to him personally. He may not even be punished, but I want this secret to be closed. I want to know what happened.